Ever wonder how your brain recalls that specific taste of your favorite childhood candy? It's a marvel of nature. This process we call memory. It's not just a filing cabinet for storing and retrieving past experiences. It's a complex dynamic system of perception, recognition, and reconstruction. Let's unravel the concept of memory. It's a common misconception that memory is solely about recollecting past events. But it's not that simple. Memory also involves perception, the process of recognizing and interpreting sensory stimuli, and recognition, the ability to identify previously encountered events, objects, or people. It's like a jigsaw puzzle where each piece is a different experience or piece of information, and your brain is the master puzzle solver, putting it all together. Now, there's a difference between remembering and knowing. Remembering, or recollection, is the conscious retrieval of past events or information, like remembering what you had for breakfast yesterday or the name of your first grade teacher. Knowing, on the other hand, is more about familiarity. It's that feeling of knowing a face in a crowd but not being able to put a name to it, or knowing a fact without recalling where or when you learned it. Memory isn't an exact reproduction of past events. It's more like a creative reconstruction. Based on the bits and pieces of information stored in different parts of your brain, your mind reconstructs the past, sometimes filling in gaps with educated guesses or assumptions. It's like piecing together a story from a handful of clues. So, how does the brain manage to do all this? It's all about the nerve cells or neurons in your brain. These neurons carry different vibrations. Some carry the vibration of knowledge, others the vibration of action. When you perceive something, the vibration of that perception gets embedded in these neurons, and when you recall that perception, your brain recreates those vibrations, bringing the memory back to life. So if memory isn't just about remembering, then what exactly does it entail? Well, it's a fascinating journey inside the brain and beyond. Let's dive in. Let's dive into the intricate world of our brain, where memories are made, stored, and retrieved. Imagine the brain as a bustling city, with the nerve cells as its citizens. Each perception we have is like a visitor to the city, registered in our mind through these nerve cells. As the visitor roams around, they leave an imprint, a vibration, that remains embedded in the nerve cells. These cells, clever as they are, differ based on the different vibrations they carry. Some carry the vibration of knowledge, others the vibration of action. Now let's consider an example. Say you spot a white cow. The image of this cow is like a fresh visitor in your brain, leaving a clear and distinct impression on the nerve cells. If asked about the cow's color 5 minutes later, you'll likely have no difficulty recalling it. Why? Because the image is still vivid in your mind. The vibrations in the nerve cells remain undistorted, and the brain can easily recreate this memory. But let's fast forward a few days. If asked again to describe the cow, you might struggle to remember its color. Why is this? The once clear image of the cow in the nerve cells has become indistinct. At this point, your brain requires some assistance from your mind, which has stored the cow's image in its ectoplasmic structure, not in the brain. The mind must labor to reformulate the image from the accumulated mental reactive momentum of past actions, a process that greatly depends on one's psychic power. The brain, then, is a worldly machine for mental recollection, assisting the mind in various ways. But when the brain aids in the recollection of any event or fact, it is termed as cerebral memory. But does our brain hold all the cards when it comes to memory? As we'll see in the next scene, the story of memory is more complex and fascinating than we might initially think. Stay tuned as we journey beyond the brain to explore the deeper realms of memory. Imagine if our memory is not just confined to our brain, but extends beyond it. That's the intriguing concept of extracerebral memory. This is the idea that our minds can bring back images and experiences even after they've faded from our nerve cells, the traditional storage points for our memories. Let's take a moment to picture this process. When you recall something, it's as if you're painting a picture from scratch. The more detailed the memory, the more intricate the painting. Now imagine you're trying to recreate a detailed image, but the original has faded over time. You have to rely on your mind's own strength and ability to rebuild this image, fill in the missing parts, and make sense of it all. This is extracerebral memory in action, but this process isn't always easy. It can be like trying to complete a puzzle with some of the pieces missing. You have to use your psychic power, your mental strength and creativity to fill in the gaps. It's challenging, requiring focus and mental agility. Now, consider a situation where the memory isn't just a few days old, but perhaps months or even years. The impression of that memory in the nerve cells would have become indistinct. The image is now stored in the ectoplasmic mind, not the brain. The mind has to work harder to reformulate the image from the accumulated mental reactive momentum of past actions. This ability to recreate images from the past depends greatly on one's psychic power. Even if the external factors necessary for the revival of the memory change over time, the mind, with its remarkable power, can recreate events already perceived. It's like having a time machine that allows you to travel back to the past, re-experience events, and bring back memories. So, we see that our memory is not just about our brain, but also about our mind's power. It's not just about the physical, but also the psychic. It's not just about the past, but also about the present and the future. Our memories, it seems, truly extend beyond the brain. Did you know that our mind has 3 stages, and each one plays a different role in our memory? Let's take a closer look at these intriguing stages. First off, there's the crude stage of the mind. This is the stage that remains active during our waking or full state. It's the stage of our mind that deals with the tangible, the day-to-day, the concrete. It's the part of us that remembers to turn off the stove after cooking, or recalls the route to our favorite coffee shop. It's our everyday, practical memory in action. Next, we have the subtle stage. This stage corresponds to our dream state. It's the part of our mind that processes, analyzes, and makes sense of the information we've gathered throughout our day. It's also where our dreams come to life. Ever had a dream that seemed to provide a solution or insight to a problem you were facing? That's the subtle mind at work. Finally, we have the causal stage. This is the deepest level of our mind, active during our sleep state. It's the repository of infinite knowledge, storing the impressions and experiences that we've accumulated over our lifetime. This is not just about remembering facts or incidents. It's about understanding patterns, making connections, and gaining wisdom. It's the stage where we can tap into the wealth of our past experiences to guide our present and shape our future. These 3 stages are not isolated compartments but are interconnected, constantly communicating and collaborating. They work in tandem, each stage playing its part to ensure our memories are not just stored, but are also understood and applied. So, whether it's remembering to pick up milk from the grocery store, dreaming about a solution to a complex problem, or tapping into deep-seated wisdom, our mind, in its different stages, is always at work, processing and preserving our memories. Memory, as we see, is a complex interplay between our brain, our mind, and the different stages of our existence. Let's take a step back and look at what we've learnt about memory. We've journeyed through the intricate maze of our brains, uncovering the mysteries of cerebral memory. This is where the undistorted images of perceived incidents are revived in our nerve cells. These cells are the carriers of different vibrations. Some carry the vibration of knowledge, some the vibration of action. For instance, if you saw a white cow, you would easily remember the color of the cow after 5 minutes. Why? Because the image of the cow imprinted on your nerve cells is still clear and distinct. Your brain effortlessly recollects this memory by recreating ideational waves. But what happens when the impression of the cow in the nerve cell becomes indistinct, say, after a few days? This is where the fascinating world of extracerebral memory comes into play. The perceived image is now stored in your ectoplasmic mind, not your brain. Your mind labors hard to reformulate the image of the cow from the accumulated mental reactive momentum of past actions, or what we call sanskaras. The ability to bring back this memory is dependent on your psychic power. And if the external factors necessary for the revival of memory remain undisturbed for some time, you can more easily recreate events already perceived. For instance, if you happen to go to the spot where you saw the cow, you suddenly remember that a white cow was standing there. The brain is a worldly machine for mental recollection. It assists the mind in various ways. But the permanent abode of memory is the ectoplasmic mind. So, even when an impression has faded from the nerve cells, the mind can recreate the impression by its own power. When the brain assists in the recollection of any event or fact, it is termed cerebral memory. So next time you recall a fond memory or forget where you kept your keys, remember, it's all about the fascinating dance between your brain and your mind.